Thought you could take my name, but you forgot about my home game. Thought you could take my name.
Hey everyone, Dronzikin here, Beyblade fanatic for the full 15 years it's been out, I think I can say. You know, whether or not that gets me any points is irrelevant. What I'm here to show you guys today is a project that I've been working on, and I think I've just now perfected it. It is making custom color Beyblades using materials you can get locally and easily. I know you might be wondering, oh my god, how do we do that? I'm about to explain it. First things first, I just want to establish, you see these two packages here? I got these two packages out specifically to show you that I bought two of the same Beyblade. We have two Doom Sizers here, and I bought two of them because you should never do this with a Beyblade that isn't a spare Beyblade. If you get any of the steps wrong, or you make a mistake, or you get distracted, or your temperature is off for whatever reason, your thermometer sucks, any kind of mistake can lead to your Beyblade melting, warping, no longer being able to be put back together. You do not want that. So please get a spare to mess with. This one we're gonna dye. This one's gonna stay in the box. All right, now that I've established that, second warning I've got for you guys is we are going to be working with chemicals, so to speak. We've got some vinegar here and some dye, and we're going to be working with high temperatures. There we go. Temperatures. We're going to be working with those. If you are not old enough to be working with this kind of stuff, get your parents to help you, or just don't do it. But, you can get your parents to help you. Show them this video. If you are old enough to be working with the stuff, just be careful. Don't burn yourself. That would be silly, and you wouldn't enjoy that. All right. To get into the actual material in this video, these are all the supplies you're going to need. Ignore all the stuff in the background. I mean, you can get these things if you want. That's a pretty good blender. I kind of recommend it. But yeah, go step by step through the things we're going to need. We've got here 2 pots. This one says dye pot. That one doesn't. Doesn't matter. You don't have to label them. Just make sure that they are spare pots. Do not use these for food later. Do not use these for food ever. Where do you get spare pots? I got mine at the thrift store. They've got all sorts of stuff there, and it's incredibly cheap. As you can see here, we're also going to need some metal tongs. Do not use your family's tongs. Get spare tongs. Get them from the thrift store. Get everything from the thrift store that you can. But this right here, you will not be able to get this at the thrift store. I'm going to have the camera focus on this for a second. You see, this is called Rit Dye More. It is not your standard Rit fabric dye, although in the store it is sold right by the standard Rit fabric dye. But this says synthetic fabric dye, synthetic fiber dye, excuse me, polyester, nylon, acrylic. This is the dye you need. Don't get the regular Rit dye. Comes in a whole bunch of colors. I got this at Meijer. I know they have them at Walmart. They also have them on Amazon if you don't like leaving the house. Get that. Get 1 bottle of the color you want, or get an array of colors. I actually have red, purple, and black. Next you're going to need, as you can see, I've been to Meijer, vinegar. As much vinegar as you can get. I got this giant-ass bottle. Get all the vinegar. Just so that you can do as many projects as you want. I suppose you could get by with a smaller bottle if you were only going to do this once. Next up, as you've already seen me show off once, this thermometer. You can get any thermometer, but just a thermometer that's meant to measure the temperatures of foods and liquids. Get this, because trust me, without this you are going to make mistakes. And last but not least, you are going to need some sort of container to hold dye. As you can see, this one's been stained at the top. That doesn't matter. That's not going to get on your finished product Beyblade. The reason I got this particular style of container, and I don't know what this is called, but the reason I got this is because it is heavy. This is not going to tip over, and it has a top with a latch. The reason for those features is that if I am walking by and I kick this with my foot, or I nudge this isn't going to fall over. And if by any off chance I do manage to knock it over, maybe I'm moving something and I hit it and it tips, guess what? The lid's going to also help protect me from getting dye all over my floor. So I would recommend something sturdy, heavy, and with a lid. Again, this came from the thrift store, incredibly cheap. I don't know what this is, but there's probably 10 of them sitting on the shelf at your local thrift store waiting for someone to come along and save them. All right, so we've now detailed all the materials, and I will be back after a quick cut to show you guys the proper setup of how to use all these materials. Okay, guys, Ignore the incredibly messy stove and just focus on what I have to show you here. Now, I'm not going to actually film this process because it involves high temperatures and I need to focus, and so I'm just not going to be filming me actually doing this, but I am going to explain to you how I do it. I've got right here Beyblades. They are fully immersed in vinegar right here. I've only got the top and the bottom plastic parts, the disc in the middle. I'm so tempted to call this thing, you know, an attack ring, and I know that's not the terms they use anymore. I learned my terms in plastic gen. I'm so sorry, but whatever the equivalent of weight disc is, don't put that in here. The metal part's not going to get dyed. Only put the plastic parts from your Beyblade. So these two plastic parts. I suppose you could put launchers or ripcords in here, but from what I've seen, all ripcords I've seen so far have been black. And launchers are a pretty dark blue. I suppose you could get that down to black, but there's not a lot of colors you could dye that. You really can only dye some colors, certain colors. It works really well on these translucent pieces, and brighter colors like this yellow will probably dye very well. But yeah, so only put plastic in here. Obviously, there's metal screws and stuff. Those, you know, you can ignore because you're not going to be able to take those out. So just put the plastic parts. Over here, the dye pot is full of red dye. I poured the whole bottle in there. You know, use however much you feel you need, but I like to make sure mine are nice and immersed, and you can reuse the dye, so, you know, I would just go ahead and use the whole bottle. Alright, so, we've got these two set up just like this, and here's what we'll be doing. I'm wearing an oven mitt. My hands are particularly sensitive to heat, yours might not be, but if you need an oven mitt, go ahead and grab one, just make sure you can still see, and then what you do is you would turn on the heat for both of these, and you would, I turn it on high, and what I do is I stick the thermometer, it's kind of blocking it, but you can tell what I'm doing, you know, about as close to the Beyblades as possible, and then just watch the temperature. Watch it go up. It'll go up when the water's on high heat, and when it gets to 180, as soon as it gets to 180, and not a second afterward, you want to turn these both off and head into the next step. What is the next step? Well, I'll show you over here, even though we're not actually doing it, but I will show you what the next step is. Put this oven mitt back for a second. The next step, as soon as you're done, cut off the heat to both of these, and you want to grab the dye pot first. Get the dye pot and pour the dye into your container. Again, be careful. Don't splash it. You do not want to splash yourself with dye. Just pour it all in here. Then after that, you're going to want to get your tongs and go in. Again, be careful, don't splash this. Pick up the Beyblades. They're going to be heated. They're not going to be melty, but they're going to be heated. So be careful. Like, don't dig your tongs into it because the plastic's going to be a little weaker and you don't want to deform it. You kind of want to go for scooping measure, which is why tongs like these, this style that just kind of have that smooth scoop to them, are the ones you're going to want to get. But whatever tongs you have, just make it work. Just be careful. Also, I can tell you right now, that little QR code piece right there is gonna come off. It's almost impossible to get that thing off beforehand, but it is gonna come off while this thing is getting heated up. Don't leave that in the pot. Don't pour that in the dye. Just, you know, fish it out with the tongs after you're all done. Get that out of there and throw that out. Alright, so then after you pick up these pieces carefully with the tongs, you're gonna want to put them in the dye container over here. I like to try to get the attack ring facing down like it is right now, so that the top of it, which is the part that you're going to be featuring the most, is the most soaked in the dye. But if your dye is higher than the Beyblades, it really doesn't matter. That's just a style thing I try to do. Same thing with this. I try to, you know, make sure that's fully immersed. And then literally as soon as you're done with that, the next step is close this up, put it somewhere where you won't trip over it, and wait. You can wait, I think you can wait as little as an hour. I actually usually leave these overnight, but the only reason I do that is because I tend to do this when I get home from work, and I'm not going to be, you know, getting up in an hour and then, you know, checking on it because I'm going to go to bed. So you can leave it as long as you want, but as little as an hour, I believe, will be okay. So I'm going to do all of the things I just told you I was going to do. You're not going to see any of that, but what you will see when I come back are the results. And I usually dip these twice, as in after I get this out of the dye container, I dry the whole thing off, and then I do it again for a second layer of color. But I've actually never done red before. I've only ever done black, and I usually do 2 times dip for black to make it a little deeper. I might not need that with the red. I might not want that with the red, but we will see when we return with the results. That does look like a pretty blood red too. That's kind of cool. All right, here we are an hour later into our Doom Sizer dye process, and you know how I said that the original Doom Sizer was going to stay in the box? I lied. I actually need to open it to do this side-by-side comparison. This is after 1 hour of dye. Got this out of here, and let me just tell you what to do when you get it out of the dye container. When you get it out of the dye container, just take it out with the tongs. I like to rinse it out with cold water, and what I do is I basically just fill up a plastic cup with some cold water and dunk these pieces in here and just kind of swish it around, let the cold water remove all the dye and, you know, stop the dye process. I actually put it in 1 cup of cold water, do that, and then I actually move them into a 2nd cup of cold water and do it again to really get all of it off. And then I just take it out of there and dry it off with a paper towel, and it's been drying and sitting here in the kitchen with the fan on it for a little bit, and it's almost completely dry. But yeah, after 1 hour of dyeing, you can clearly see the difference between this Doom Sizer and that Doom Sizer. If we pick this up and flip it over, you see this part here actually dyed really, really red, the inside plastic, as compared to this. You see this is pretty white. And then if we go over here, see, we pick this up, this part is silver. This part is clear, but over here, this silver kind of has taken on a red tint, and this other edge here is also red tinted. Look at that red skull face right there. It's pretty cool. The entire Beyblade has kind of just gotten stained a little bit red, or possibly stained with blood. Yes, that is entirely intentional. I did want to make what I'm going to call, when I'm finished with it, Blood Doom Sizer. Oh yes, edgy, I know, the edgiest of Beyblades, but I mean, someone's got to make it right, and I want to have one, so this is my in-progress Blood Doom Sizer, and I say that it's in progress because I'm actually going to do a second coating, a second layer, a second dip of dye with this, which basically means that I'm going to take these 2 pieces, and I'm going to do all of the original steps that we saw before. So I'm going to take these, and I'm going to put them in a pot with vinegar, I'm going to heat them up, and then I'm going to put them back in the dye for a second go. And you can do that with a piece that's already been dyed. The vinegar, the hot vinegar, will not affect this at all. This dye is permanent. It's going to be this color forever, no matter what you do to it. So we're going to do these for another hour, and after that, I'm going to show another comparison with these, and I'm going to leave original, and we're going to see how they've changed after 2 hours of dyeing. But before we do that, I'm just going to walk over here for a second, and see this dye container here? It still has all of that original dye in there, and what we're going to do with this is we're not going to use any more dye. We are going to just pour this right back into the dye pot and use it again. Just heat this same dye up again. Just be careful when you're transferring it, and just pour it back into the dye pot, and we're going to repeat all the same steps from the beginning of the video. So when I get back after doing that, you will see what happens after a 2nd hour of dyeing. Alright, we're back after the 2nd hour of dyeing, and as you can see, I have these Beyblades fully assembled now. This one for comparison, and this is the one that came out of the dyes. You can see it is definitely redder now. Look at these, the silver edges are now a kind of metallic red. Looks pretty sweet. We got a decent red cast over that skull face, and this previously translucent edge is now very red. If we look at this, we look at the tip here, it's still, I'd say, more orange than red, since this was a combination of an original yellow part. And the very tip, as you can see, it is still mostly yellow. That's because, unfortunately, it's just so tall that even with the full bottle of dye, this thing actually didn't reach over that. But that's okay. This is the part that'll be in contact with the stadium. And it actually does make a pretty decent kind of fire effect, going from a deeper orange to yellow at the bottom, so I'm down with that. It can be a little mix of hellfire in there with my extra edgy Blood Doom Sizer. But yeah, this is my finished product. Looks pretty cool. Here it is in comparison to original Doom Sizer here. As you can see, it's nowhere near those colors. And this one, instead of just having a red bit a little bit right there, which is where the original one has the red bit, it's now red everywhere, especially that metallic red. I really do like that. But yeah, that's the finished project. I let it dry out and then I just reassembled the Beyblade. Fits back together perfectly. If you heat it up too much, it will not fit back together perfectly. So please be careful with that 180 degrees. I mean it. Turn it off as soon as you reach 180 and do not exceed it. And just as a bonus bit before we go, this is my custom Black Roctivore. This is actually the first blade that I made, custom color. One of my favorite bit beasts has always been Black Dronzer. Obviously, my favorite is Dronzer, but Black Dronzer is probably my second favorite. You know, just because it's the scary dark Dronzer that eats every other bit beast. And I decided that since Roctivore so far is my favorite of Beyblade Burst, though I'm not that far in the episode, so I haven't seen that many, but I do have a thing for stamina types, I decided to make Black Roctivore. And, you know, here it is. This is how it turned out. The blue base here did not dye as black as the orange part, but I'm cool with that because it's overall a darker version of Roctivore, which is what the, you know, evil bit beasts are. This is a darker Roctivore, and I really like it. Like, I love the way this came out, and, you know, I'm pretty proud of that. And so, yeah, now I've got 2 custom Beyblades. So far, I've only made 2, but there's lots more to come. Our Black Roctivore and, of course, our Blood Doomsizer. And original Doomsizer over here is going to stay this way. We're not going to dye this one. But, yeah, I can always get an extra one if I wanted to make a different one. Maybe I want to make a purple Doomsizer or green or something and make a virus Doomsizer with, like, a cool, sickly green or something. That would be awesome. I mean, there's really no limits, especially with a blade like this that's mostly silver and this translucent plastic. You can make this pretty much any color, and green plus this yellow is going to make a pretty sick color. So if somebody wants to make Virus Doomsizer, you know, let me know. I will totally check that out, but I'll probably make it first. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Here's another, you know, look at all the custom Beyblades versus the original one, and feel free to try this on your own and let me know how this works. You can contact me at my Twitter. My Twitter is @TheDronzican. It's just the same channel name, just with a "the" in front of it. Apparently somebody else snagged Dronzican. I'm not sure who, but whatever, @TheDronzican on Twitter. Show me your custom Beyblades. You know, be safe with your dye and your chemicals and your temperatures, and have fun. Thank you for watching.